Okay, let's dive right into this because honestly, this is arguably the single most critical technology question of our time. How do you actually control an artificial intelligence system that's constantly learning, evolving, and adapting long after it leaves the lab? It's a massive challenge. You aren't just building a static piece of software here, you're literally unleashing a living, dynamic system into the real world.
So, in today's explainer, we're going to demystify a truly foundational document, the AI Risk Management Framework Playbook. Our goal is to take what might look like, well, an incredibly dense, highly technical risk management document and transform it into a clear, actionable blueprint for building trustworthy AI. We're going to look at the very architecture of trust itself.
To get there, we'll follow a pretty clear roadmap. First, the AI Risk Challenge. Then, Govern, the cultural foundation, followed by building diverse AI teams, managing and prioritizing the risks, and finally, sustaining AI system value.
All right, let's kick things off with Section 1, the AI Risk Challenge.
When we talk about deploying AI, the stakes are just massive, right? We're talking algorithmic bias, security flaws, the digital divide, the whole shebang. But here's the secret to navigating all of that. The playbook isn't some rigid instruction manual. The source explicitly states the playbook is neither a checklist nor a set of steps to be followed in its entirety. So it's a completely flexible, voluntary framework. Organizations can just borrow exactly what applies to their specific industry or use case. It adapts to you, not the other way around.
Moving on to Section 2, Govern, the cultural foundation.
Now, what's really interesting about this is that it acts as the bedrock of our entire AI skyscraper. Before you even think about writing a single line of code, you absolutely have to establish how your organization views risk. Because you see, managing AI risk isn't just some math problem for the engineers to solve, it's a deeply human cultural issue. As it's defined, govern means a culture of risk management is cultivated and present. That means having real policies, transparent processes, and executive leadership that actually steps up and takes responsibility for the algorithms. And when you get that cultural foundation right, you create this incredible full ecosystem. Govern basically becomes the central sun of your solar system. Orbiting right around it are the other vital functions: mapping the context to identify risks, measuring those risks through tracking, and managing them based on their projected impact. But here's the kicker. None of those orbiting functions work at all if the gravitational pull of a strong culture isn't holding the whole thing together. So, how do we actually calculate this risk in the real world? Well, a typical approach to understanding risk tolerance is actually pretty straightforward. Risk is roughly equal to the impact of an event multiplied by its likelihood. So, as an organization, you really have to sit down and decide your own risk tolerance. Are you dealing with, say, negligible little annoyances? Or are we talking about critical, irredeemable human, financial, or environmental losses? And this governance stuff extends all the way to the very end of an AI's life. You can't just yank the plug out of the wall and walk away. Safely decommissioning a system requires a highly careful sequence of legal and operational steps. First, you've got to address user and community concerns so you don't instantly destroy trust. Then, you evaluate how shutting this thing down might break upstream or downstream dependencies. You've also got to review regulatory requirements and, absolutely crucial here, you have to preserve ancillary data, stuff like past predictions or input features, just in case there's a legal investigation down the road. It's really all about preventing tomorrow's disasters today. Which brings us to Section 3, Building Diverse AI Teams. To actually build this architecture of trust, we have to shift our focus to the humans maintaining the system. A diverse team, one that brings in different disciplines and real lived experiences, is just vastly better equipped to catch those tricky blind spots. And this brilliantly illustrates a key point. There needs to be a vital separation of powers. You've got to draw a very clear line in the sand between AI operators, the folks actually using the AI for downstream tasks, and AI overseers, the people whose sole job is to monitor performance and handle the governance. Mixing those two groups together? Yeah, that's a recipe for massive conflicts of interest. So, how do you actually support these teams? The playbook outlines some incredibly specific, actionable practices to foster a true safety-first mindset. This means bringing legal and compliance teams into the room early on, like day one early. It means promoting what they call effective challenge, where experts are actively encouraged to question design choices to avoid groupthink. It also involves red teaming, basically stress testing your models under simulated attacks. And for sure, you need to establish strong whistleblower protections and set up public bug bounties to catch any potential harms before they explode.
Next up, Section 4, Manage, prioritizing the risks.
I like to think of this manage function as the ongoing maintenance and real-time response system of our AI building. Here, risks are prioritized and acted upon based entirely on their projected impact. Because let's face it, in the real world, resources are always finite. You literally cannot fix every single thing at the exact same time. Management is really the art and science of allocating those limited resources toward the most material, highest priority issues first, especially when we're talking about things involving physical safety or massive legal liabilities.
But here's a bit of a reality check for you. Even after your absolute best efforts, you're going to have some leftover risk. This is officially known as residual risk. So the crucial point is that this is the sum of all those unmitigated risks that still remain after a response is chosen. And here's why that is so incredibly important. Those leftovers, they get passed right down the supply chain to the people buying the AI or the end users. Being 100% transparent about this residual risk is absolutely essential if you want to maintain trust.
Now, when a high-priority risk rears its head, an organization essentially has 4 distinct paths it can take. Number 1, you can mitigate the risk, taking steps to reduce its overall impact. Number 2, you can transfer it. Maybe you handle that through insurance or specific third-party contracts. 3, you can completely avoid it by just choosing not to deploy the system in that context at all. Or 4, if it happens to fall right within your risk tolerance, you can just accept it. But remember, every single one of these choices requires deliberate planning and heavy documentation. Finally, we arrive at Section 5, Sustaining AI System Value.
Deploying an AI system is definitely not a finish line. Honestly, it's more like the starting gun for an ongoing journey. And the absolute biggest hurdle on that journey is this concept called model drift. This is the phenomenon where an AI system's performance and its trustworthiness actually evolve and shift over time once it's deployed out into operation. Just imagine an autonomous vehicle for a second. If its underlying model starts to drift over time because real-world conditions are changing, it could start making extremely dangerous errors, like failing to limit high speeds properly. Model drift fundamentally degrades both the value and the safety of your entire system.
So, to catch this draft before it snowballs into a full-blown crisis, organizations really have to use precise, continuous monitoring mechanisms. This means you are constantly reassessing your test and validation protocols. It means meticulously tracking your human-AI teaming configurations, just to make sure the humans are still providing the right level of oversight. You've got to use standard, constantly updated documentation. And critically, really crucially, it demands mechanisms to capture continuous feedback from the actual end users who are interacting with the system day in and day out.
Let's move to and see how this builds to a rather stark warning directly from the playbook itself. System performance and trustworthiness may evolve and shift over time once an AI system is deployed and put into operation. An AI model is just never truly static. In a way, it breathes, it learns, and it changes based entirely on the fresh data it consumes out there in the real world.
So, what does this all mean? Well, it leaves us with one incredibly provocative question to ponder. When your AI changes tomorrow, will your governance actually be ready? Trust isn't just something you build once, check off a list, and then totally forget about. It's a continuous, active cultural practice. By leveraging this playbook, you can ensure that as your AI inevitably evolves, your architecture of trust remains rock solid. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I really encourage you to keep exploring these fascinating frameworks on your own.